that keep coming back. It's great to see you guys again. I've been thinking since the last time I was here, it was on our wedding anniversary, and we had a whole row of kids here in the second row just singing their hearts out in the worship service, which was really a blessing. And to look around and see so much of your youth up here on the worship team, that's a blessing. And as Pastor Benny mentioned, you know, a lot of people have passed in the last couple of weeks that we all know about. There's a whole bunch more that have passed that we don't know about. Even yesterday, Steve McNair, a famous football player, was shot and killed in a condominium down in Tennessee. And as Pastor said, we don't know when the end is for us. A minute or an hour or a day or a year or, 50 years. I mean, who knows? But we want to be sure we're doing what God's called us to do while we're here. Because we never know when opportunity is going to be taken away from us. And as I was watching and listening to the children the last time I was here, that verse just crossed my mind, Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. What an incredible promise for us. And as you watch this in the youth here in this church, you see that happening. I get to spend time around a lot of youth who don't know the Lord, or their parents don't know the Lord, and it's just kind of chaos. And so it's a blessing to see children that are learning about the Lord at church and in their classes, and then but most importantly from home, because you see, God has given each one of us an assignment, and that is to train up children. If we have children of our own, then we need to be training our own children, but that doesn't end the game for us or the assignment. I mean, we need to be responsible to train up children anywhere and everywhere we have an opportunity. I don't know how many of you know much about me or what I do, but I work as a missionary through my home church over in Livermore now, and primarily teach God's financial principles to people, trying to help people learn what Scripture says about handling all the resources He gives to us, and to do it in a way that honors Him. And so a lot of my thoughts and thinking and studying and preparation and observing people and things kind of centers around that topic, because that's the piece of this whole big pie that I've been called to. That means when we train up a child in the way they should go, it has to include that part of the picture. How do we, as parents or adults, if we're not a parent, but an adult with children around, how do we teach them this part? Part of what I do is to sit and work with people, some individuals or couples, all different ages, from the youngest, young adults to some of the oldest. And it's been amazing over the years when you get to a point, probably 30,000 people now that I've worked with. So you get a feel for where people are and how all this is coming together. And yet, in all the times I've been able to ask them a simple question: when you left home, how well prepared were you to handle the finances? And I can only remember one person that told me that they were really trained at home. Most everyone else just kind of learned as they went. And when you get married, now you have two people who learned as they went, trying to get these pieces to fit. And you can see why, with the divorce rate so high, 80% of the people who get divorced say it had to do with money. It really doesn't have anything to do with money. It has to do with communication. And if we don't talk like we should, money is going to become a problem almost instantly. And so I've observed this, and I've thought, the Lord is calling us to train up children in the way they should go, and it has to include this part of life. We have to help prepare them to understand that everything we handle is His. We need to manage it in a way that glorifies God. If we can do that, we can avoid so many of the problems that we get into. And so as I've been preparing for this week, I thought, how do we teach children to look at finances in a godly way? How do we teach them to manage what God is going to give them in a way that glorifies God? It really seems like there's three methods we can use. One of them is verbal communication, talking to them, teaching them verbally. In Deuteronomy 6, there's a great passage, and this kind of gives us our assignment, where we're all on assignment. In Deuteronomy 6, starting in verse 4, it said, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your strength." We've all heard that. We sing it in songs. I mean, that's pretty familiar to most of us. But then he says, "These commandments I give you are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk down the road, when you lie down, and when you get up." Basically, all the time, anywhere. Take the opportunity, no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing, to try to relate life to Scripture. Whether we're talking about their homework, or a school assignment, or how they did in the baseball game, or how they handle their allowance. It really doesn't matter. Try to help them understand how this all fits with Scripture. Because if they get that, when they're old, they will not depart from it. And our job is to pass that on. So we need to verbally instruct our children. We can't very well do that if we don't study it ourselves. We need to understand what God had to say about everything. But if we just go to this topic, he has 3,240 verses in this Bible that have to do with money. So it's obviously an important subject. If we can't get that part of life right, the rest of it is just going to become a problem. So verbal communication, but we're going to have to do a little more than that. The fact of the matter is that, well, you think of that expression, monkey see, monkey do. We can talk to our kids till we're blue in the face. And I'm not sure how much of a difference it makes. Because they are going to watch you and do whatever you do. And a lot of times as parents, I think back with my wife Kathy and I, with our kids, we'd say, just do what I say, not what I do. Well, that's a cop-out. If it's not important enough for me to do it, then why would the kid do it? See, they see right through that stuff. Kids are like sponges, just soaking up the adults' attitudes. And as you get to be as old as me and you look at your children and your grandchildren, you can see what you taught them. I know a lot during my parenting years when I thought, I'll never do that like my dad did. I'll never be like that. And then I watch my kids as they grow up and they're reacting the same way to me as I did to my dad. I did the exact same thing I said I'll never do. Why? Because that's what I learned. I observed it and I just kind of built it into my lifestyle. It's hard. It's hard to break some of those things and try to do it a little different way. There was a commercial on TV some years ago that struck me. There was a man walking down the road along the water with his son, little son. And the guy picked up a stone and he threw it and just skipped it across the top of the water. And so the little guy picked up a rock and he threw it and tried to skip it across the water. And they walked a little bit farther and the dad reached up and grabbed a leaf off the tree as they walked under it. And then the little guy jumped up and grabbed a leaf off the tree. And then the dad sat down against a tree and lit up a cigarette. And the little kid picked up a little twig, a little stick on the ground and put it in his mouth. See, they watch everything we do. They want to imitate us so that they get our approval. And we have to be real careful understanding that. We got to be real careful how we live life. It's not going to be enough to just tell them what they need to do. We're going to need to show them how you live life. If what we're doing here, singing worship songs and studying the Bible, is important, then it's important enough to live.